Hello, loves. This is the OSS Morale Operations Field Manual for visual from the OSS archives. This is from the CIA reading room. We're gonna have to do all of our reading from now on to classical music. Otherwise, they're gonna throw up copyright violations. And I'm already exhausted from redoing a bunch of videos because of that. Apparently, music from World War II, which should be in the public domain, is not in the public domain. So go fucking figure. This Morale Operations Field Manual Strategic Service Provisional is published for the information and guidance of all concerned and will be used as the basic doctrine for strategic services training for such subjects. The contents of this manual should be carefully controlled and should not be allowed to come into unauthorized hands. The manual is intended for use of the OSS bases and should not be carried to advanced bases. Article 308-5 pertaining to the handling of secret documents will be compiled within the handling of this manual. William J. Donovan, Director. This manual is now declassified. Morale Operations Field Manual Strategic Services. Section 1 General Provisions. Purpose. The purpose of this manual is A. To present the details of morale operations and their relation to the strategic services activities and the OSS objectives, as well as to actual or planned military operations, to set forth general doctrine to be used in the planning and conduct of morale operations. 2. The definition. The term morale operations, as considered in this manual, includes all measures of subversion other than physical used to create confusion, division, and to undermine the morale and political unity of the enemy through any means operating within the purpose to operate within enemy countries and enemy occupied or controlled countries and from bases within other areas, including neutral areas where action or counteraction may be effective against the enemy. 2. Objective. The objective of subversive moral operations are A. Within the enemy country, to incite and spread dissension, confusion, and disorder, to promote subversive activities against the government by encouraging underground groups, and to depress the morale of his people. B. To discredit collaborationists, to encourage and assist in the promotion of resistance and revolt against axis controlled by the people of these territories and to raise their morale and their will to resist. Within other areas best suited to the purpose, to conduct activities which will assist in the accomplishment of the objectives in A and B above. Secret. Within the enemy armed forces in all areas, to induce low morale and encourage rebellion. E. Within OSS and theaters, to support and assist other OSS activities, particularly SO, Special Operations, and SI, Special Intelligence, in their respective fields. Implementing a cough drop right now. That's what I'm doing. Oh, authorized. The Morale Operations Branch, in cooperation with other agencies of OSS, will employ the following implements for the accomplishment of the above objectives. 1. Contacts with manipulation of individuals and underground groups. 2. Agent provocateurs. 3. Bribery and blackmail, in that order. 4. Rumors. 5. Forgery, to include the writing of poison pen letters, forging misleading intelligent documents, falsification of enemy documents and periodicals, and the printing of false orders to the enemy's regulations and proclamations. So the purpose of me reading this to you is twofold. One, I want you to know what they do so you can be prepared for it. Two, to know which of these things to implement and which of them to not. You don't really need to be doing poison pen lenders and fucking people's lives up. But a lot of the other shit is really useful. Just saying. Printing of false orders to the enemy, regulations and proclamations. 6. False leaflets, pamphlets, and graphics to be used for subversive deception within enemy occupied countries and not indefinable with any official or semi-official United Nations agency. Freedom stations masquerading as the voice of groups resistance within the enemy and enemy occupied countries when used for subversive deception and not identifiable with any official or semi official United Nations agency. B. Unauthorized. The following implements are not authorized: propaganda and publicity, including the dissemination of information, arguments, and appeals and instructions by mass means of communications, e.g., radio, press, graphics, motion pictures, official pronouncements on behalf of or clearly eliminating from any official or semi official United Nations agency. This function is delegated to the Office of War Information. 2. Economic pressures within the jurisdiction of the Foreign Economic Administration. 3. Official diplomatic pressures, which are the formal and informal influences exerted through the medium of our regularly constituted State Department. MO may, however, give unorthodox support to such State Department policies and activities when such support is desired and requested by that department. General principles, focusing on principal leaders and limited groups. Since the implements and employed by MO are not mass means of communications, its operations are focused on principal leaders and special groups who exert or are capable of exerting real influence on control of larger masses of people. These leaders are key enemy military and naval personnel, administrators, civil leaders, quaslings, diplomats, and potential leaders of resistance. The groups are special elite groups, important segments of the armed forces, such as naval personnel, soldiers in isolated areas, or soldiers with low morale in certain combat sectors, collaborationists, partisan groups, special political, religious, labor, or other organization, and any disaffected group in the populations whose grievances and vulnerabilities can be exploited. 2. The object is therefore to concentrate operations on those critical persons and groups whose subversion or cooperation will produce the most telling effects on large mass. Thus, all morale operations must be carefully tailored for the particular persons or groups that are its special targets. Open propaganda methods of wide dissemination and frequent repetition, such as appeals and countering enemy propaganda or building up general goodwill for the United States, are not within the scope of MO strategic services. Coordination with military operations. MO engages in operations that further actual or planned military operations in areas of active or military offensive. MO focuses its operations on key enemy military and collaborationist personnel and on specific groups of people at specific times when at places where its work will be of greatest assistance to our forces. Similarly, in enemy areas where military action is likely to occur, especially in rear areas of enemy command, communication, supply, transport, MO directs its activities towards critical military or civilian leaders and other persons in specific places where disruption of enemy activity will support our own projected military action will have the greatest effect. Collaboration with underground networks. In order to assist the promotion of resistance and revolt among the people of enemy occupied and controlled territory, and to discredit collaborationists, MOs will utilize so far as practical existing underground networks for MO activities. D. Cooperation with other branches of OSS and with analogous allied activity. MO works in close liaison with SO and SIDE and allied networks of operatives and agents and cooperatives whenever possible in joint action. MO tasks in particular areas may be carried out by specially trained MO operatives and agents or by OSS personnel under MO direction as the situation requires. Section 2, Organization. 6. Organization within OSS Washington and in the field charged with the conduct of morale operations are the following: MO Branch, OSS Washington. B. MO Section, part of the Strategic Service, field base within a theater. C. MO Section, a part of Strategic Service base within neutral area. D. Field operating personnel both within theaters and neutral areas. 7. MO Branch Washington. The Morale Operations Branch Washington, a part of the Strategic Services operation, is responsible for MO planning, administration, and special MO indoctrination of personnel and for recruitment and procurement all through established OSS channels. Field organization. Organization within theaters. 1. Each theater of operations MO activities are directed by the MO section's operation under the control of Strategic Services Officer or any General Operations Officer designed by the Strategic Service Officer. In some theaters, the theater commander may designate a special unit for deceptive propaganda and combat subversive operations and call OSS to assign it to MO personnel, supplies, and equipment. 2. The MO section officer is responsible to the Strategic Services Officer for the procurement through established channels of MO supplies and equipment in his theater, training and direction of all MO personnel recruited in the theater, and the administration of all MO personnel dispatched to the field from Washington but not destined for operations in enemy or enemy occupied territory. He is responsible to the Strategic Services Officer for the direction of and policies and plans governing the operations of MO operatives and agents operating in enemy or enemy occupied areas. The following are suggested as assistants to the MO section officer. A. Staff officers. Staff officers are located in the field headquarters and may include the following persons. 1. The deputy section officer is assistant to the section officer and assumes charge in the absence of his superior. 2. Liaison officers maintain active contacts with other branches of OSS and with other U.S. and allied agencies conducting analogous activities. 3. Desk officers are responsible for plans and operations within their respective designated regions. 4. Personnel officers and such assistants as he may require to recruit, process, and train agents, operatives, and technicians within the theater. B. Technicians and experts. These will include persons with special training in the use of MO technical instruments as required. C. Field operatives and agents. Field operatives and agents will be procured and utilized for field operations both at the base and behind enemy lines. B. Organization in neutral countries. 1. In neutral countries, MO personnel will be under the supervision of an MO section chief, who will be under the control of the chief of OSS mission. for reasons of security and to avoid interfering with local requirements of the State Department. The strength of the MO personnel should be kept to the smallest number necessary for the effective execution of approved MO programs. In view of critical importance of cover in neutral countries, the cover of each authorized person conducting morale operations should be approved in accordance with OSS procedures for cover. Section 3, Selection and Training. 9. Responsibilities. The MO branch is responsible for indicating its requirements for personnel and, subject to OSS regulations, assists the service branch in their selection. It is further responsible for indicating to the schools and training branch the types of special training required for MO personnel. 10. MO branch of OSS Washington. Personnel of the MO branch at Washington should have wide and proven experience in the theory and practice of influencing human beings, possessing if possible foreign experience and executive and planning ability. The chief of the MO branch arranges for such special training of this staff as is necessary. 11. Field personnel. Requirements for field personnel vary depending upon the duties and functions of the persons in questions. In all instances, due regard for security will be observed. The following is an indication of the requirements of each type of MO personnel. A. Field headquarters, staff offices. These men should be reliable persons of the United States citizenship, having demonstrated proficiency in administrative affairs and in the theory and practice of influencing human beings. They should be familiar with the area which they are to work and do not necessarily have to have excellent linguistic qualifications. They are not required to enter occupied or enemy occupied territories. Experts and technicians. These persons should have individuals, usually of the United States citizenship, having requisite knowledge and skills to service, maintain, and operate the required MO implements. C. Field operatives and agents. These men should be reliable persons, not always of United States citizenship. They must possess linguistic qualifications and a detailed knowledge of the people and area with which they work. Normally, they serve in enemy or enemy occupied territories, but may also be called upon to serve at the base, either within theaters or neutral areas. Training of field personnel. The training of personnel both in Washington and in the field includes the regular strategic service basic course in secret intelligence and special operations. In addition, this personnel receives special training in morale operations. This training covers the purpose and organization of morale operations. B. Basic principles of strategic and technical planning of MO tasks. C. Methods of clandestine reproduction media, ergo freedom stations and false printing. D. Methods of morale subversion. E. Sources and analysis of current intelligence. F. Practice on field problems. Specific instructions and training detailed with the area of their activities will be given to all field personnel called upon to operate undercover. Section 4. Coordination of MO field activities with other services. 13. Collaboration in detailed planning. A. Morale operations will be most effective when they are planned as part of a common campaigns conducted by various underground services and integrated closely with actual or planned military operation and allied strategy. B. Detailed plans are prepared by MO section officers should therefore be worked out through the closest liaison with SO, SI, the Allied Underground Services, representatives of Native underground groups, and with military and naval representatives. The Strategic Services officers facilitates checks and approves such coordinated plans. Where specific military operations are contemplated, particular attention is paid to planning MO tests and support of them. In addition, tasks which facilitate and complement the work of SO and SI are emphasized. The MO planner may be able to assist in the planning of SO and SI missions by drawing attention to the specific support that MO can render through bribery, rumor spreading, use of freedom stations, and false pamphlets, forged documents, and direct personal contacts. Collaborations and operations. Strategic services operations out of field headquarters are governed by the nature of the problem that confronts strategic services officers and by the size of, and training of the personnel available to him. Morale operations are treated as one integral part of the whole OSS program. When an MO task is to be conducted and when there are properly placed and trained MO operatives and agents available to do it, these will be used. If a project task involves physical operations or secret intelligence work, MOMEM may be given special SO and SI training in order to do the job. Similarly, when an MO task can be best accomplished by SO or SI men without jeopardizing their own work, these men may be given special MO training if necessary and assigned to the job. Whenever SO or SI mission networks or contacts are established within a territory, MO should, whenever available, operate through them. Similarly, if allied networks or trustworthy representatives of reliable native underground groups are available and willing to cooperate, these should be employed to do MO work. When specific MO tasks require it or when the theater commander requests it, close collaboration with the United States or allied propaganda agencies in the field should be arranged. Relationship through liaison. Through MO field activities under the direction of and controlled by of strategic services officer, the closest relationship between MO branch, Washington, and the MO field sections is necessary. Through the appropriate channels, the MO section officer will report to Washington on his needs, his recommendations, and on the course of his operations. In turn, he will receive from the Director of Strategic Services Washington supplies and services which he may require, strategic services programs, plans, and implementation studies, MO campaigns, and projects for his considerations, reports on morale operations conducted in other theaters, and reports on morale operations conducted directly out of Washington, with which his own work should be coordinated. Be a liaison with intelligence services at the base in the field is essential to effective MO operations. This should in particular be important for RA and SI, which should be informed as to the needs of MO. Communications. All communications between MO personnel, both in the field and from the field to Washington headquarters, will be through regularly established communication systems. Section V implements 17 types. The major implements employed in subversive work are direct personal contact by trained personnel, agents, bribery and blackmail, rumors, false leaflets, pamphlets, and graphics, freedom stations, and forgeries. The kinds of operations implemented by these instruments are given in Section 7 on operations. General channels. For the purpose of carrying out the various morale operations, the MO representative at Allied or neutral base will make use of specially trained OSS agents. However, such agents will be far too few in number to execute all the operations that MO representatives will desire to initiate. It will be necessary to enlist the aid of various individuals and organizations not in OSS employ, but strategically placed and willing to cooperate. In many cases, contacts can be made in Allied or neutral territory. In other cases, it will be necessary for agents in enemy territory to make contacts. B. Underground representatives. Selected persons of underground groups afforded the best means of conducting morale operations, such as discrediting collaborationists, winning hostile elements, and promoting discord and revolt amongst the population. Hence, the closest cooperation is desired. OSS should attempt to comply with reasonable requests from underground leaders for equipment, funds, and moral support, and we are changing that immediately. So don't don't ruin it for us, please. We will go back to Vivaldi. Uh, The aid of various individuals and organizations not OSS employed but strategically placed and willing to cooperate. In many cases, contacts can be made in allied or neutral territory. In other cases, it will be necessary for agents in enemy territory to make contacts. B. Underground representatives. Selected persons of underground groups afford the best means of conducting morale operations, such as discrediting collaborationists, winning hostile elements, and promoting discord and revolt amongst the population. Hence, the closest cooperation is desired. OSS should attempt to comply with reasonable requests from underground leaders for equipment, funds, and moral support in order that a policy of friendly reciprocity may be established. Governments in exile. Closely related to underground movements are governments in exile which maintain numerous contacts with the home country. Their organizations can be used where practical and feasible for promotion of morale operations. Caution must be exercised. However, certain of the governments in exile have strong political aspirations and may attempt to adapt MO plans to their own purposes. Liaisons with such governments in exile should be controlled by the Strategic Services Officer. D. Other U.S. agencies. The State Department, OWI, FEA, the Treasury Department, and or the CIA may be in a strategic position, particularly in neutral countries, to provide MO with considerable support in the execution of plans. Other allied governments in certain areas of the world, other members of the United Nations will be in advantageous positions for morale operations, and much time and labor can be saved by collaborations with agencies of these governments. Labor organizations. Labor organizations have many connections in enemy territory and in general are amongst the most vigorous opponents of the enemy regimes. Former labor organizations which have been suppressed by the enemy may still retain remnants of organizations that can be used. For example, pre-war trade unions in occupied Europe, those suppressed, may still operate as clandestine organizations. Labor organizations have useful contacts with foreign as well as native laborers in enemy territories. Religious organizations. Religious groups such as Catholics in Germany, Buddhists in Burma, Protestants in Japan, if properly approached, may provide effective assistance for morale operations. Clerics have a high degree of mobility and are less harshly treated by political authorities than other ordinary citizens. H. Political organizations. The Communists and Social Democrats have hitherto been the most active political organizations opposing the enemy within his territory. You have to realize this is written from a perspective of the 1940s. So, all that has to be updated. All of it. All of it. Professional organization. Professional people in general are ideologically opposed to the enemy. During the last war, an effective subversive organization in Belgium was composed of professional people. It was run by a university professor and an engineer. Professional classes have numerous international connections and are strategically located. Business organizations. Business organizations with branches in enemy territory may still retain connections that can be exploited. This is especially true of business organizations located in neutral countries. The commercial traveler is in an especially favorable position for morale operations. K. Fraternal organizations. Attempts should be made to enlist cooperations of international fraternal organizations like the Masons, which may be active in enemy territory and opposed to him. Newspaper and newspaper correspondence. Assistance in spreading rumors and making plans may be attained from newspaper and newspaper correspondence, especially in neutral and allied countries where stories may be published that will work their way into enemy territory. Sailors. Sailors from neutral countries whose ship touch enemy ports are particularly useful for spreading rumors and engaging in other subversive work. Contact with sailors in general can most usefully be established through trade organizations. Travelers between enemy and neutral or allied and neutral territories are one of our most common sources of intelligence. It should also be possible to enlist the aid of certain of these travelers in MO activities. Friends and relatives. Friends and relatives of civilians and soldiers in enemy territory may provide a channel for morale operations in the letters they write to enemy territory. Civilians in occupied areas. Sympathetic civilians in areas occupied by Allied troops may be allowed to penetrate the lines into enemy territory and carry out morale operations there. 19. Personal contact. It is the physical meeting or communication between agents usually operating undercover and other persons whose participation in morale operations is desired. The persons contacted are usually individuals in key positions such as leaders or potential leaders of partisan, dissident, or enemy satellite groups, or any persons who act can have an important morale disrupting effect on the enemy. The objective in most instances is to approach persons who can in turn influence others. The purpose is to swing key personnel over to achieving greater cooperation with resistance groups, to swing over fence sitters and wavering personnel in enemy or satellite areas, to intimidate and terrorize key enemy figures or active collaborationists. The best technique, whenever it can be used, is to employ persuasion backed up by promises of supplies. Work of this sort involves appeals to convictions, favors, status pressures, exchanges of information, payment of legitimate expenses. A detailed who's who for the area of operations. It is essential intelligence for this work. Such a compilation requires a full and detailed list of key native personalities, pro-enemy leaders, pro-allied leaders, fence sitters, collaborationists, pseudo-collaborationists, and key figures and organizations in the area. The amount of prestige and influence each person should be appraised, and a thoroughly worked out description of his background, his strengths, and his vulnerabilities should be included. Cover, when used in personal contacts, requires the most careful planning. The operative or agent should not only be trained in the principles of cover and be able to choose one that will protect him from discovery, he should also be tailored for the most effective approach to the person to be connected. He should have the right personality, intelligence, expertise, and context acceptable to the person. The special customs of the areas for meeting and negotiating with individuals should not be violated. Rumors. A rumor is an unauthenticated, unofficial story or report represented and transmitted as fact. Two broad types of rumors can be differentiated: subversive rumors, which play upon emotion and attitudes of their audience for the purpose of undermining morale, and rumors which seek primarily to mislead and deceive. B. Subversive rumors against the enemy are used to exploit fear and anxiety of those who have begun to lose confidence in military successes, to install false optimism and overconfidence, which will lead to disillusionment and cause popular antagonism to civil and military leaders, to create division amongst radical political, religious, and military groups within a country and between the peoples of allied countries, to cause enemy populations to distrust their own news sources, to lead civilian populations to precipitate financial, food, and other crises by panicky reactions, and to create confusion and dismay by presenting a welter of contradictory reports. In addition to the above rumors, may also be used to cause diversionary or impotent enemy action by revealing false information about our plans and capabilities. The degree to which rumors can achieve such results is determined largely by 1. The course of military events, 2. The effectiveness of other allied propaganda media, 3. The effectiveness of enemy propaganda and enemy repressive measures, 4. The emotional state of the audience, and 5. The artfulness and suitability of the rumors in terms of the audience's background and information. Rarely can they by themselves change basic attitudes. Their function is to confirm suspicions and beliefs already latent, to give the sense and directions to fears, resentments, or hopes that have been built up by more materialistic causes, to tip the balance when public opinion is at a precarious state. Rumor targets. The following groups are most susceptible to rumors. 1. Groups or classes that have become fearful and anxious about their personal well being. Rumors should tend to confirm the pessimistic expectations of the group involved. 2. Groups or classes that have become unrealistic or overconfidently hopeful. Rumors should focus on information which supports their hopes, which is consistent with information available to them, but which will ultimately produce disillusionment. 3. Groups or classes that are suspicious of hate of other groups or leaders. Rumors directed against such groups should focus on information that justifies and increases hostility. Groups or classes whose monotonous, humdrum lives make them particularly susceptible to fantasy, for example, men in prisons and army camps. 5. Highly religious groups. 6. Primitive, highly superstitious groups whose native traditions and beliefs can be exploited. 7. Groups with guilty feelings who fear retribution. 8. Special groups that lack information either as a result of censorship, directed propaganda, physical isolation, or illiteracy. Properties of a good rumor. A good rumor is one which will spread widely in a form close to that of the original story. Probably the main factor determining whether it catches on is the degree to which it is adapted for the state of mind of the audience. In addition, successful rumors embody most of the following qualities. Plausibility. A plausible rumor is tied to some known facts yet incapable of total verification. It may exaggerate it, but stops short of the incredible. It frequently appears as an inside story. Simplicity. A good rumor uses only one central idea as its core. Its basic message is simple and thus easy to remember. 3. Suitability to a task. To summarize opinions or attitudes which are already widely accepted. Slogan type rumors are best. England will fight to the last Frenchman. To introduce information which will help build up the new attitudes. However, narrative type rumors are best, ergo, rumors which prove that Hitler is mentally ill. Vividness, regardless of length or type, rumors which stimulate clear cut mental pictures of strong emotional content are likely to be most effective. 5. Suggestiveness, the type of the rumor which merely hints or suggests at something instead of stating it as is well adapted to spreading fear and doubt. This listener should always be allowed to formulate his own conclusions. Concreteness. The more concrete and precise a rumor, the less likely it is to become distorted in transmission. G. Using rumor channels. To do an effective job of disseminations, a thorough and systematic survey must firstly be made. All possible channels, the form and content of a rumor should then be adapted to the particular outlets through which they are launched. For this example, a rumor to be spread via a longshoreman circles might have a bit of pornography at its core. Several channels should be regularly re-examined to determine whether the maximum circulation is being achieved. Rumor mongers should be natives of the territory where rumors are to be spread. For reasons of security, it is important that rumor mongers should be discreet. The rumor should be spoken before an innocent but talkative person, ergo a bartender, who will unconsciously spread the desired rumor. Now, some of this stuff is really distasteful and often gets used inappropriately, as it is. I've been the victim of rumor campaigns. I have seen rumor campaigns, and I have seen them do some pretty ugly and stupid shit. So you need to carefully consider what you're doing and why. Is it to have a specific effect? Like I said, a lot of this is to teach you what they do, so you know what they do. Rumors can also be initiated by planting material in newspapers by writing provocative letters containing a purpose message, leaving the letters lying about. Wait. Rumors can be initiated by planting material in newspaper, writing provocative letters containing a purpose message, leaving the letters lying about where people will pick them up when they are alone, by the use of denials and by studied indiscretion. B. Coordination and timing. There are no inflexible rules as to whether rumors should be preceded or follow up other subversive implements in the execution of a given campaign. Rumors frequently prepare the ground for later use of subversive pamphlets and for personal recruiting and for open propaganda broadcasts and leaflets. In other instances, as for example following SO demolitions, rumor may be used most effectively to exploit and exaggerate results achieved. To catch on rumors must usually exploit the momentary focus of public interest. Hence, one rule of timing is always applicable. There must be as little time lapse as possible between the provoking event and the launching of the rumor. Special uses of rumors in connection with military operations to be employed only as directed by the theater commander. The most effective way in which rumors can be used in direction with connection with military operations is in the creation of panic and confusion amongst civilian populations and enemy troops. Fright rumors can be used to direct civilian refugees into the path of a fleeing enemy and thus block his retreat. They can be used against enemy forces to induce surrender. Rumors may also be employed to foster or allay guilt, i.e., by attributing violence or atrocities to enemy forces or to our own as the situation may require. Following military actions by our forces, they can be used to create fear and anxiety by exaggerating the magnitude of damage done. They have also been used effectively following military action to cause the enemy to release through refutation information of value to our intelligence services. And they will do that a lot. That's actually a component of MK Ultra too. Throwing false rumors and accusations, and then the person has to sit there and constantly defend themselves and then divulges information in trying to defend themselves. Rumor intelligence. The basis for good rumors is accurate, detailed intelligence. The rumor planner and the rumor operator must keep the closest possible check at all times on the character of the group they are trying to affect, on their traditions, circumstances, sentiments, and interests, and on the contemporary happenings and developments. It is essential to have intelligence on what the audience knows and what it does not know. on what it fears and hopes for, on what its morale is given on what its morale is at any given time, on what kinds of rumors have caught on in the past and in particular area. In many cases, the most effective rumor policy will be to spread further rumors that have arisen spontaneously in enemy territory. And we are already at 45 minutes. So we will continue at 21 on page 18, false leaflets, pamphlets, and graphics.